Hi, my name is Paul Fisk. I am the Transfer Student Success Program Manager here at the University of Utah, and we're really lucky that we have a panel of great alumni from the University of Utah. I tried to have people who are not currently at the U, just because that's a little harder to get a hold of. So I really appreciate all of y'all's time, and so we don't want to waste it, and we'll just go right into questions. So we'll start with, please introduce yourself and tell us about your experience as a transfer student. Jose, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I can't see faces here, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself and kind of share a little bit about my experience as a transfer student. So, my name is Jose Morales. I currently work for a federally funded college access program called Gear Up, which stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. I've been in this position, it's going to be up 4 years in May. So I've really been looking forward to helping students with their college essays, FAFSA, college applications, ensuring that they are given the skills and tools needed for them to be successful. As a transfer student, when I was a student as an undergrad at the U, I felt like my experience was very seamless and very productive. So I transferred from Solid Community College after graduating from high school. Dr. Paul Fisk was able to help me with the process of the transfer articulations, helping me ensure that the process was streamlined so that my credits were able to transfer. When I was deciding about whether to go to the U or SLIC, I also got accepted to Westminster College along with Utah Valley University, but I was really sold to the idea of going to a community college because of various reasons, right? The pricing felt right, the college atmosphere after taking a tour, the people there who were able to support me through the entire process. I really felt like Solid Community College was a good place to start. So I ended up completing my gen eds there and then transferring to the U and then becoming more involved about that, which I'll talk about later in another question.
Thank you so much. Elizabeth?
Thank you for the question. So my experience has been wonderful thanks to Paul. I think he makes a really big difference when you decide to choose SLIC and then go to the University of Utah. I did the concurrent enrollment program when I was in high school, so I think SLIC was a really wonderful option for me to choose from the very start. And then when I moved, I was a bit intimidated and a bit worried about how that process is going to be like. But then there is the Transfer Honor Society, and there's also different groups that meet within the parameters of the program that Paul administers that always made me feel at home. And so the transition was felt like home. And I also think in that process, I made really good friends, and that showed different, like, diverse opinions, backgrounds, that I really value, and I continue those friendships until now.
That's great. Thank you. Sambat?
Um, Hello everyone, my name is Sam Bat Kim, and currently I've been working for a private sector. I've been working as a logistic coordinator for a medical equipment company. During Before I started this position, I working in public service for 8 years as an educator, and then my journey as a transfer student was a meaningful one, especially as a first generation college student. After I graduated from high school, um, it really takes a lot of time to thinking about either start at the university right away or start at a 2 year college. And then when I do a lot of planning and a lot of like research, I feel like Salt Lake Community College been like a good like place to start first as a first generation college student. And I was like worrying about transfer at the first place, but after I met Paul, Dr. Paul Fitz, my advisor, my mentor, he not only helped me with planning, with not only advising my major, also like supporting me with looking for scholarship, always, and also like after I transferred to the U, he also supporting me at the U. And after that, he still like keep in touch with me, not only in like an academic field, but at the same time, how to like supporting other transfer students. So I'm kind of excited to be here to share more about my experience.
Thank you. Juan?
Hey y'all, name is Juan, he, him pronouns, visual description. I am a Latino male with a blue shirt on. I'm in my home. So I came to University of Utah by way of community college in Los Angeles. So at the time it was like an underserved community. So from transferring from like Los Angeles to like Utah, some cultural shifts, but like very much still a lot of the issues that come naturally with like transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year, and at that a tier 1 research institution. And that whole process was like really daunting, but thankfully the power of community that Paul helped foster at University of Utah, I was able to like just get a sense of community and be able to access resources and just have conversations with folks like Jose and Brown, like what it means to like be at this institution and some of the shared obstacles. So that's kind of how I came here. So yeah.
Thank you. And so we'll go into the next question. And that's what programs or opportunities did you participate in as an undergraduate student at the U? And maybe we'll start with Elizabeth this time.
Okay, thank you for the question. So I pursued my bachelor's and master's in the field of social work, which I felt like that was the path for me because it aligned with my values, what I wanted to do, and kind of the professors I had found wanting that the research was relevant to mine. So that was my track. And then after my bachelor's, went on to the master's because I wanted to get some clinical experience. That was that and then I left the Utah, which I could talk about later, but that was mostly what I've done.
Thank you. Jose?
Yes, so when some of the programs and opportunities that I participated in as an undergraduate student include taking a transfer class called Transnational Education, and that might have changed due to the curriculum, but the class was taught by Dr. Brenda Valles, and to this date, I still keep in contact with her, emailing her every now and then, but she was very influential in allowing us to be a part of the class. So Juan Carlos and I were actually part of that in the same cohort. And it was a great experience being able to learn more about articulation requirements, and then kind of that acculturation piece of like transferring to the U and acclimating ourselves with the new campus environment, being a community college student both ourselves. And I really felt like I learned a lot from the class. Dr. Paul Fisk was one of the co-professors, and I really felt really empowered to understand resources that were available for students. I was able to get involved with CTHS, the Crimson Transfer Honor Society, along with participating in other facets of my undergraduate experience. I worked with Paul Fisk for about a year or two with the Diversity Scholars Program in the Center for Ethnic Student Affairs office, but I think it's now called the Center for Student Belonging. And so that was a great experience, being able to perform workshops or facilitate conversations, being a part of these awesome panels, and letting students know about how awesome the U is for students, particularly students of color.
Thank you, Jose. Sambat, do you want to?
Yeah, so during my 2 years experience at the U, especially when you're a transfer student, you have like limit of time, like what type of like program you want to involved in. And then I chose like 3 specific program that I was in part of. Like one of them is like study abroad program, and then the second one is Crimson Transfer Honor Society, and then Benyon Center. And then like Elizabeth said, like my major was an international study with a business emphasis. So I tried to get involved with something that related to my major. So one of the best things about those 3 programs is like it's really reflect to my values, and especially for international study, one of the major requirements to do study abroad. And during that time, like not only to prepare, I'm looking for scholarship, how to write essay, find the right program, and then after like a long like research, I did find the best program that fit me, not only my major but also like my interests. So I did a study abroad in Taiwan, National Taiwan University in 2017. Those like was like the best like time of my year as a student, when you like went to live abroad by yourself, to learn like to be independent. And then Crimson Transfer Honor Society also like a best other way to giving to other students, especially as a transfer student, you have a lot of obstacles. Usually you focus on when you transfer to a new institution, it's not the same as you at your 2 years institution, because you have more rigorous, you're gonna have like more stuff that you need to do for your academic work. And then also like for my last one is Benyon Center. I got involved with alternative spring break program. Like those like program made me get to meet new people and at the same time giving back to community.
Thank you so much, Samba. So Rena got through technical difficulties. So Rena, if you want to say, kind of introduce yourself as well as kind of what you were involved in as a student.
Yes, thank you, Paul, and apologize. Those technical difficulties. So my name is Reina Escalera Villegas. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm a community organizer promotora here at Comunidades Unidas, and I'm also the development manager. We are the largest immigrant rights and justice local nonprofit organization in Utah. So as a transfer student or first generation transfer student, my experience has been just thinking back about those years, this has been really challenging because I had to think about like all the stigmas, the stereotyping coming in from a transfer student not following the traditional, I guess, the traditional student life where you graduate from high school and then go to college. But I was able to make it through along with like all the mentors that I had. I know Elizabeth was one of my mentors, her mom as well. Paul was one of my mentors that really helped me out as I transferred. I remember that I met Paul when I was at Solid Community College in one of the workshops, and he just like, I don't know, he just dived into it. He just like spoke to me, and he was just so amazing. So I really appreciate all the mentors that have been part of my life and that have helped me guide me through, because a little bit about my background. My dad, he never went to school, so he doesn't know the system or anything. So everything had to be figured out by myself. And so having these mentors was really essential as I walked through this. Some of the programs that I was involved in, it was the Crimson Transparent Society, which I heard a few folks as I got in mentioned. Paul introduced me into that. At first, I didn't know what it was, and so Paul introduced me to that, and then it led me to be part of being the vice president, and it just helped me to feel belong, that I was part of something, that I was not an outsider. And so I really appreciate all the introductions to all the programs. Another program that I was part of is the Utah AHIC Scholars. This is an interdisciplinary program where they involved different students from different types of fields, psychology, nurses, doctors, and then we just come together and talk about like the best practices that we would use in certain situations. The other one that I was involved was well, there were so many that I was involved. I guess I'll just leave it there and then just so others could have a chance to speak.
Thank you so much. Juan, do you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Juan. I am a California organizer with Caring Cross Generations, a nonprofit that concerns itself around care economy, care issues, so like taking care of family. And I feel like a lot of the resources that brought me to this position were largely related to it. When I first initially got to Utah, being able to be in the cohort along with Jose to talk about some of the intersectionality of like culture and transfer and how that relates, and getting able to meet like Dr. Baez and also Paul, and being able to like then have opportunities to then go out to Colorado with Dr. Baez's partner, and being able to like just meet community more than anything. It was a National Association of Chicano Studies. It was a conference that, I mean, at least for myself, I could speak, it was really defining, because I was like, hey, there are like community members that I could see myself in at a high caliber academic level. And like having come from a community that I didn't really have any academics in my family, let alone my community, was like really meaningful. But having been in like political science, I, had to come to a realization saying, hey, there's a lot of people graduating with like degrees, but no experience in the workplace. And all of a sudden jobs want you to have 3 years experience, and you just graduated and you're just like, wait a second, like, how am I supposed to get experience while I'm working, while I'm in school, while you want me to graduate? So thankfully, like University of Utah has like the Hinckley programs, which I was able to utilize to be able to like build out my resume during my time in college, and being able to like do like a state internship with like the legislature, which then helped me get more familiar with some of the Utah landscape, then getting into an internship at the national level, the US Senate. And that's where I was able to like determine like, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is kind of where I'm at. But a lot of the like foundational things that I had at the Hinckley were really formative in like my ability to navigate politics now, because one, as a Latino male in the space, you just realize that a lot of these opportunities aren't paid for. And as a byproduct of that, it disproportionately goes to like white people and being able to like access those resources because they could afford to take an unpaid internship a lot more likely than I can. So having those resources on campus was really helpful, especially because they offer subsidized housing and a lot of like resources more than anything in preparation. And I don't want to go too much into it because I do have my friend here who flew in from Utah to talk more about it, not just for this, he's just visiting, but I want to give him the opportunity to speak a little bit about Hinckley, if that's okay, Paul. Sweet.
Go for it.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. I'll be really brief. My name is Nick Cockrell. I actually still work at the University of Utah at the Hinckley Institute of Politics. And Juan and I met 7 years ago when we were roommates here in Washington, D.C., doing the Hinckley Internship National Program, which was incredible. And, he kind of already mentioned, but a big goal of the Hinckley Institute's programming is to help students of all backgrounds, all means, to complete internships. And these internships can happen at the local level. Some folks are looking for ways to get involved in their local community. The legislative session every year offers paid internships to students who want to see how state policymaking works on a really in-depth and up-close level. And then my personal favorite, obviously being here with Juan, is the Washington, D.C. program, where students either get subsidized or fully covered housing to come live and work a semester in Washington, D.C., either at a nonprofit, advocacy agency, a federal agency, or any other type of organization that meets your interests and needs. And the last thing I'll say about that D.C. program that's really exciting is the Hinckley Institute is opening this fall a brand new house, right? It's going to be called the Orangey Hatch Center, and it's going to have enough space to house 50 University of Utah interns every single semester. And so if that's something that folks are interested in doing or pursuing, there's always going to be space for students from our campus to have these sorts of opportunities. And we want to make sure that they have scholarships to meet day-to-day needs and to fund their housing. So if you have any questions, of course, you can stop in at the Hinckley Institute or visit hinckley.utah.edu. So I'll turn it back over to you all, but I'm grateful to have stopped in.
Yeah, and I'll drop Nick's emails in the chat. Again, keywords paid, but also don't be dissuaded by politics, because politics intersects with our day-to-day lives in numerous ways. So while you might think like, oh, well, not political, but everything's political. Research is political, environmental advocacy is political, healthcare is political, so even if you don't see, I don't want to be directly in the US Senate, but just understanding that like it's paid opportunities to understand the intersection a lot more, and being able to like bridge those two resources is one of the biggest things that the Hinckley allowed me to do in the University of Utah during my time there. But I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you all for tolerating me and Nick.
No, thank you. And I've had quite a few students go, and I know there's a lot of really great opportunities. So thanks for sharing that. And that's so cool that he was there to jump in. So that's awesome. So for the next question, I'll leave this open to who wants to answer first, but this is always a question, but how do y'all pay for college, especially with transferring and kind of cost of tuition going up?
I can start first. I think my experience, like as a first generation college student, the first thing that comes to your mind is like how to pay for school, especially when like your parents can't help you with that money part of your academic. I think back to my high school experiences, like during those times, like I met with one of my college advisors. I'm talking with her, like, I want to go to the University of Utah, like how do I pay for school? And then she was like guide me through talking about financial aid, talking about scholarship, talking about private scholarship and public, and then also like college scholarship that provided by different institutions. And then I think remember like back in high school, I applied for a lot of scholarship, and then I got a lot of offers to Salt Lake Community College, to the U, but it's still not enough to pay like for a whole year, 4 years. And that's like how I decided to went to 2-year college first, and then after that tried to transfer to the U. And in during those like time, I did the same. I tried to get myself meet like with Dr. Paul Fitz. He helped me guide me through a lot of like scholarship process, how to look for scholarship, especially when you know that you want to go to the study at the U. So he tried to help you looking for different scholarship that fit not only your majors, but at the same time to help you with your essays, resume building. So try to making sure you find the right scholarship that fits you, but how are you going to get those scholarship? And then when you do get those scholarship, how do you have enough to pay for your whole tuition during like those like 2 years at the U? And then luckily I got a lot of help from Dr. Paul, and then I pay off for my whole school for like 5 years. I spent like 3 years at Slick and then 2 years at the U. I got those 5 years pay off with no debt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's an uncomfortable question, but of course, I mean, this is a real conversation because like, I always say that like when you graduate, your school stops caring about you, which is like half true. And I'm sure like, because afterwards like, you start feeling very isolated from the campus and you start realizing, hey, I have a bunch of debt and I don't really have like a good understanding of how to pay it back. Like, at least that's how I felt. Especially because like I feel like after I graduated, I was like, it's kind of weird. Like I don't want to go back to the university, but I think a big part of the conversation was like being able to like look at how to like reduce it. So like transferring is already a good transfer step because you save a bunch of tuition on that end. But I think on the back end, I think just realizing like, hey, like I need to find like a line of work within, my program to be able to graduate, and then realistically think, okay, how could I find work that could like realistically pay back my student loans, but also sustain a standard of living. So I think the best way to preempt that, is just trying to like start thinking about like what career for you want to. So when you do graduate, you have a better understanding rather than like graduating and then thinking about like what experience do I need for my career. So I think just being really mindful of like experience you're getting now, so that when you do graduate, you're in a position to like get an occupation that allows you to like comfortably pay off your student loans in a way that doesn't leave you eating ramen every day. So just, yeah, think about your career early on.
Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can share. Coming from a single parent, low-income family, when I graduated high school, I never imagined that I would go into college just because nobody talked to me about college. So that was not in my mind. So after I graduated, it was just, that's it. I'm just gonna start working. And so I started working. But then later, a few years after, my little brother was now what is it called? 12th grader. And one of the university students went to the high school that I was going to, or like I graduated from, and she talked to my brother about like the possibility of actually going to college. So my brother came really home really excited, and obviously with our families in the Latinx community, there's always a stigma about sharing like any sensitive information. So my dad didn't want to share any information, especially he didn't want to apply any government scholarships or grants. And so he was really skeptical about that. But we were able to convince him. And because we convinced him, we were able to go. I was able to actually apply for college for the first time. And so my little brother did too. And then after that, so I'm privileged to say that I was able to graduate debt-free, but it was all through the hard work of like, one, applying for FAFSA. If you qualify for FAFSA, please apply for FAFSA. And the other thing is just applying for scholarships. I know it could be a little bit intimidating or feel like you don't deserve that scholarship, because I remember feeling like that. I was like, why should I apply for a scholarship? Other people actually need it more than I do. But then I realized, oh, I actually need it. And so then I applied for scholarships as well. And that's how I was able to graduate all the way through my master's with debt-free.
Thank you. Jose or Elizabeth, do you want to add?
Oh, sorry. Did you want to go first, Elizabeth?
Okay, I'll be brief too. Thank you for the question. I also think it's one that crossed my mind a lot. But I think with funding, I believe the very first thing is capturing your experiences and then creating a story that can reflect what you want and what this funding is for, because a lot of the funding asks, why should we pick you? Why are you unique? What would you contribute to? So if you have a way that you can put a story, so it's not about telling, I am responsible, I am a good person. You have an example, right? I did this. So that clearly shows you are responsible and a great person. So I would say capturing these stories and maybe creating a journal or a notebook or documenting them so that you can put that in an essay is essential for any funding. So because concurrent enrollment, you do pay less than the amount you would pay if you were a full-time university student. So that was one way that was possible through that concurrent enrollment program. So if you know somebody in high school, you're in high school, it's a great program to utilize. Then my bachelor's was mostly through little scholarships such as like the Pepsi one. There's a bunch of nonprofit ones, awards and things of the sort, but also the fund for the Indigenous community. There's one with the Indigenous community because of my background and roots, and that's how I was able to pay the bachelor's and master's, and then master's also through assistantships. Those are really great ways to pay for it. A lot of master's programs already has some funding options, so it's make sure you meet the deadline and you actually apply. I had the honor of working with Paul during my master's program too, so that was such a blessing. And then a doctorate degree, there's so much. If it's abroad, it's a little bit different, and a lot of governments actually offer funding for like PhD master degrees. Right now, there's like a full paid bachelor's, master's, like doctorate in Turkey. There's another one in Japan. There's all over the world. And right now are the deadlines to apply, especially in March. I think they close in March if you're thinking about international and maybe coming back later. So yeah, I think those are the one how I paid for them. For my other masters, I paid through the Rotary Fellowship, which is an amazing fellowship. You should consider it if you're interested in peace and conflict studies. They have 7 peace centers around the world, and it's fully funded. And then the other education I got, it's through other nonprofit organizations. So there's so many. It's what I just like to say is that make sure to capture your experiences and shape a narrative that does reflect who you are and your skills and your values, and the money will come to you and you'll have more choices than you'll imagine. And then you have to then choose, right? Because a lot of scholarships say if you choose us, you can't choose any other scholarship, and you need to make sure that that's something that you're okay with. So then that's the second conversation you have to have with yourself. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I think for me, it wasn't until I took higher education finance in part of my graduate studies that I really found out like the landscape of why higher education is so expensive, right? And who should pay for it, right? The student, or is it like a public service? Is it a public good, private good, what have you? But I think for me, when I started, I was able to get a scholarship from West High School, which is where I went to school. So West High is the oldest public school in the state of Utah. Very diverse in nature, a lot of good programs there. So we have concurrent enrollment, AP, IB. I wish I would have taken advantage of concurrent enrollment just like Elizabeth did, because I feel like I would have been able to finish college a little faster. But I was the type of student who wasn't really sure if I wanted to do college, and if I did, what I was going to major in. I was able to take advantage of several classes in my high school, which includes AVID, along with like being helped with the UCAC advisor at the school. Thanks to my involvement with AVID, student government as well. My counselor advocated so that I could get a scholarship from the West High Alumni Association, which was about $3,000, which helped me finish my first year of college at Solid Community College while I was gaining experience, becoming more involved with their summer bridge program after I completed my first year. And then through part-time jobs, I was able to pay for tuition myself. My goal was to graduate debt-free out of college. So as I was able to get more experience, I worked with Paul in the Transfer Diversity Scholars Program. I worked with Richard Diaz's the first year services program at Solid Community College, and then applying for different scholarship opportunities, including SOMOS Scholarship Foundation, the Union Scholarship opportunities, the IME Becca Scholarship, which is a scholarship designed for students who have Mexican nationality. And then little by little, as everyone has kind of commented, I was able to sort of filter out the scholarships that I was eligible for because of my current immigration status. So being a DACA, I wasn't eligible for FAFSA, which I didn't feel like that would have deterred me from applying for other opportunities. So regardless of that, Paul was a huge help in helping me understand and look at different scholarship components. And thanks to that persistence and being resourceful, I was able to graduate debt-free with my undergraduate experience. And then when I applied for graduate school, I applied for 2 graduate assistantships, which included one with the Graduate School Diversity Office, where I actually learned a little bit more about what fellowships were. And I was able to be a part of the process of understanding, for instance, different kind of fellowship opportunities for students who want to go abroad. And then I had the opportunity to work in the student union building, working with the scholarship committee, putting together a college-wide scholarship celebration with the help of Paul, with different partners on campus, and really kind of exposing and being a part of those committees and understanding what they were looking for. So I felt like that experience was really valuable in helping me understand that college is accessible, and it's a matter of being resourceful and then also having good mentors to support you. Letters of recommendation are important. Many scholarships do require those. So it's good to build relationships with mentors, advisors, colleagues who will have the ability to give you a good word. I know a lot of us have had the ability to have Paul write us letters of recommendation, which has helped a lot in the process of being able to gain a scholarship or being accepted into a particular program.
Thank you. I feel honored with all your responses. But I think like for the next question, and this was actually, I have a student staff I work with. Her name is Emily, and she really wanted to hear this kind of the answer to this is like, have you dealt with like imposter syndrome? I know you've all done like big graduate degrees or kind of higher positions in work. And so what has been your experience of if you felt imposter syndrome, and how have you dealt with that? Because I know a lot of students, particularly after transferring, that might be a question or a concern they feel. And then this is open to anyone who wants to start first.
I mean, personally, I dealt with it by getting a master's degree because it just sucks, especially like in politics where people, especially like a lot of like people who are grass tops, very like white, Caucasian policy makers, stakeholders, they really value degrees. And it really sucks because like you can't really leverage your like lived experience in those spaces because like there's research and there's academics and there's everything. But a lot of like what I had to deal with like imposter syndrome was like feeling like it was a difficult space. Like I didn't feel like I belonged in academia. I didn't feel like I belonged in policy spaces. I didn't feel like I belonged in politics. And I feel like a lot of that was like really grappling with like, hey, like you are enough. Your lived experience is valid. Your observations as an individual are valid. And it takes a lot to like really, come to terms with that. But I think for me, dealing with imposter syndrome, a big component of it was like really validating my lived experience as experience where like, yeah, I don't know like research articles that prove that I'm right, but like systemically, I felt things and I had emotions and I didn't feel like I needed to validate it through like fancy multi-syllable words. And I feel like the sooner that I was able to validate those emotions and realize that that is something that is valuable to these table and conversations, the sooner I was able to actually start using that to mobilize my community. And I think that's been like a big part of how I dealt with like imposter syndrome personally, just being able to like validate my own lived experience as like enough, even though I didn't read Plato and John Locke or whatever. And like, I didn't like, I lived enough to be able to like feel and validate those emotions to be able to like not write papers that cited them there, but I felt I could write about my experience and how it relates to a broader theory.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone? Elizabeth?
I think, yeah, to add to that, I agree. I think a lot of us maybe experience that at some point in our lives. But I also believe that it comes with your personality too. I think personality plays a big role in that, maybe in terms of perfectionism. Some people say it's based on childhood. Other people say it's because you grew up with a talented sibling. So there's many factors that come with that. But for me, I think it is if you are feeling imposter syndrome, it's a good sign that you are challenging yourself to new experiences. You're keeping your ego in check, and it's a signal that you're gaining experiences. Of course, it's not good to compare yourself, and but I think for me, when I do feel it, I feel it's like, okay, this is a sign that I am progressing. Of course, it doesn't feel good, but if you kind of shift it in terms of what does it mean in the larger spectrum of things, and that you're getting out of your comfort zone, look at it from those 3 points, that you are getting more experience, you're keeping your ego in check, and you're continuing with your goals, then I think it's something good to feel to a little bit. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but like it's a good sign to some extent. And it's also, I found it a great way to bond with people, because I even in these big spaces where people are doing incredible stuff, and maybe you do feel imposter syndrome, they also feel it. And so if you're in a conference, or if you're in a space or in a room where you get to talk to someone, and you're able to share a little bit of it, and you see the other person also shares it, you create lifelong friends that remind you that you are that remind you of the wonderful things you're doing. So it's a great balance as well. So I wanted to share that. I think especially graduating a little bit early, there's so many expectations that you're going to utilize the time correctly, right? So if I saved 3 years in high school, I need to make sure those 3 years are well used. And there's a lot of pressure in that, personally, no, not external pressure, but so having this feeling is a good way for me to constantly think about how I'm productive and how I will be reaching my next goal in the next 2 to 3 or 5 years. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
I can go. Oh, Jose, you can go.
Okay, so I think definitely imposter syndrome is real. Even as a professional in my current role, I still feel like as an imposter, because as many of you have said, my salient identities as a first-gen student has led me to think that like I feel like sometimes I'm not worthy of being in these positions of power. To some extent, I'm able to supervise a team of 9 different staff individuals, and obviously reporting to a statewide assistant director of an entire national federally funded program. And sometimes with that responsibility, I feel like there comes great power, right? Spider-Man fan, by the way, too. So that's the reference, but I feel like it's one of those things that I constantly have to prove myself that I am worthy in terms of being involved in these spaces. I like what Juan Carlos mentioned regarding the meritocratic world we live in, right? Where sometimes the degree you have really does have a strong role in whether or not someone will listen to you in that regard. So I've been a part of those conversations where even in the school that I work at, for instance, it being so diverse, it's still predominantly white in terms of the administration that I have to work with. So sometimes navigating super complex conversations and trying to get and negotiate certain things has led me to think about my role and how my salient identities have an impact in the way I approach things, the way I try and negotiate certain aspects of the job. And so I feel like this is real, but there are ways to litigate that. When I was applying for graduate school, for instance, I'm really thankful for Dr. Paul Fiss for allowing me to rethink about my role in terms of accepting my graduate school, because originally I was going to be taking a gap year to try and think about other programs, but obviously if it hadn't been for that conversation, I don't know if I would have had the ability to apply for other schooling because of funding, lack of opportunities. So I really do feel like that is going to continue to play a huge role, especially for many of us. But there are ways to litigate that by empowering ourselves and self-advocacy. And then also, I'm listening to a couple of different podcasts to just try to motivate myself, and knowing that despite the struggles and the hardships, there are things that I can control, and there are things that I would want to benefit, so that I can help my students continue to perform the very best.
Yes to everything that Elizabeth, Jose, and everybody has said. For me, it involves my physical, mental, and emotional energy, like it's invested in it. But the first thing that I do is to recognize and acknowledge those feelings that I'm feeling at the moment. I do a lot of self-reflection, especially in the work that I do. So, but I like to write the things, the pros and cons. I remember that when I first got so back in 2016, 17, I remember somebody telling me, oh, I can already see you being a manager. And I was like, no, that's never going to happen, because I was always like feeling that imposter syndrome, and I always doubted myself and my skills and my abilities. And And then when this position was offered to me, I remember that the first week after I said yes, I was feeling that imposter syndrome where I was like, oh, maybe I should say no, maybe I should just call it like and quit. But I didn't. Well, one of the things that I did is just reflected on it, on where those feelings were coming from, and just like sit with those feelings and then learn from them. One of the things that I did, I also talked to people how I was feeling, because I have like mentors, and so I really like to let them know how I'm feeling, and then they usually help me guide me through. Because yeah, sometimes I could be so hard on myself, especially with the things that sometimes I made myself to believe in when I know that I'm not that, right? So yeah. That's one of the things that I do. Right now I have a coach. I'm with a management center where I have a coach, and so when I talk to her, she's also a social worker, so it's amazing because we can connect with that. And then she tells me all this time, celebrate your accomplishments and celebrate yourself. And she always reminds me of that, because we all often forget of everything and how far we have come, and we know that it has taken our sweat, our hard work, our dedication, our passion, and our love to get where we are. And so yeah, that's one of the things that I do. If I can reflect on myself and write it on a journal, I'll do it, or I talk to others when I need to.
Thank you for sharing that.
I think for my experiences, like before like I accept this new position as in private sector, like during like my whole 8 years in public service as an educator, it's just really meaningful. And then my whole like career has just been involved in public service and giving back to others. And then during like 2021 post-COVID, it just made me really thinking about where I want to see myself in the next 5 years. And these questions keep coming a lot in my careers. And then that's like when I start thinking about like, should I stay in public service or should I switch out of like public service and try something new and something different? And then during those times, it's really hard when you really love what you do and giving back to others, helping your community, but at the same time, it's part of your growing, kind of your growing progress. And then when it was like my undergraduate degree, and I never see myself as an educator, and then I got my degree in international study with a business emphasis. I just want to focus more on like the private sector side, and then this like time that give me the time to thinking about what I want to see myself to doing in the next 5 years. And then after switching from public service to private sector actually give me a new space of like learning and opportunity to grow. And then now, if I can go back to public service, I have like a new experiences and a new opportunity to giving back to my community in a different aspect what I learned in a public service or like private sector.
Thank you so much for all those responses. So this is the last question before our audience Q&A, and it's really just like, what advice do you have for current and prospective transfer students?
I think being able to like just talk to community. I feel like it's small but it's mighty. I think being able to like talk to folks about like, hey, like thankfully I was able to like go through the Hinckley and like figure out like, hey, I don't really like state politics. And then I went to like DC and I was like, I don't really like federal. It's too disconnected. And then I did other internships afterwards. But I think to me, shopping around different like opportunities and being able to like understand like likes and dislikes, when did I feel most happiest, when did I feel saddest, what work did I love, what work didn't I love, is really a great way. Don't feel like you're committed to like one specific profession or field. Like what Sambat was saying, like he was in public, then he went private. And I think there's a lot of knowledge in being able to like go to the different markets and understand your field that much better. So my best advice would probably be like ask around, talk to folks, look at like different like internships, talk to folks in the spaces that you would want to be. This really, understand that like every job and every career and every profession is like unique, and you just need to like dip your feet and see if you like it or not, because it's daunting at times, but I think a lot of it just comes down to like having some experience with it and being able to say like, I don't like this, but I see the value in it. I just don't see that for myself. Like I love policy. I don't like policy people, but I love organizing. That's when I feel most happiness and most like myself. And I think being able to like shop around different professions and shop around different like things is something that I would really emphasize really early on in your career, so you could like really start narrowing down what you like and don't like and what makes you happiest, because that's like a big part of it, where like work is work, but it shouldn't just be a means to an end. It should be something you generally enjoy. So I think shopping around and finding like your passion is like a really big thing that I would really want to emphasize.
Thank you.
And then I want to add to that last question as well. I think for me, talking as a first generation college student, after that graduate like with no debt, I think the most like amazing experience for me as a college student, I just want to say mentorship, and then also like ask for help. I know like sometime when you as a college student, you kind of have like those like feeling like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I think I'm okay, but like it's okay to ask for help. And then for me, like I'm really grateful for the mentorship I have from Dr. Paul Fitz, because like he not only helped me during like my transfer experiences, looking for the right major, helping me with scholarship, but at the same time helped me looking for my first job as a college advisors, and then giving back to my community. And this like experiences, like it's really make me inspire me so much that I chose a career because of Paul, because he helped me so much during my transfer experiences as a college student. After that, giving back to my community for 3 years, and after like those 3 years, this is like your next step. What do you want to do in your career? Do you want to stay back in your public service or private sector? So it's come back to finding the right mentorship, and then with the right mentor, not only like you building those like great relationship, those like friendship, but at the same time like a lifelong friends that you always know that you have someone to look up to. And I do look up to Dr. Paul Fitz so much. Even like talking to my student when I was an advisor, that I have like advisor, I have like the best brother, that I always have someone to look up to, the role model that they help me during those like hardship. Because like especially during like those college days, trust me, I have not like mental breakdowns, but there's like a lot of like hardship and those like tough times. And then you have like no one to talk to. You can't talk to your family because you're as a first gen, no one really understand what you're talking about. They want to help you, but they can't help you because they don't understand the system. And when you have like this like mentor and this like amazing like role model, you just want to look up to him and then ask him when you need that help.
Thank you so much. You all did this yourselves also.
I can go. My advice would be to embrace the change, your new beginnings, your learning, your growth. It's okay to be scared or excited or skeptical. You are you, and no need to compare with others. It's okay to take one step at a time. The experiences and the process is what makes you unique, and it's what makes you stand out from others. You bring such wonderful skills, experiences, knowledge, and you are amazing already for considering transferring, or or if you're already a transfer student. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more advices. One, don't feel the need to be like others, because you are you, and there's no one as amazing as you are. 2, find a buddy in class where you both can talk to each other about the assignments. 3, look for resources. Oh my goodness, look for resources such as mentors, as Sambat mentioned. I remember coming into Paul's office and just crying sometimes because it was hard. So find mentors. Join a student group that you are interested in and become a member. It could be CTHS, it could be another group that you're really passionate and more interested about. And always remember what you want to do, why you want to go to college and earn your degree. Why did you decided to start this path? Keep that dream and goal in mind and work towards it. You got this.
Thank you.
So I've also written 5 things. So my advice would be, in terms of I think funding is incredibly important. And the more fellowships and scholarships you have, the more you are connected to an alumni community that then open more doors. It's a kind of social capital game, I believe. And consider seeking funding opportunities as a job, So put a time in your schedule, 2 hours I'll dedicate to finding this. I'll dedicate to looking at people's profile, connecting as much as possible. and make it a hobby, right? Instead of, so the more people you know, the more opportunities will come to you, so you don't have to go to them, and the more options you'll have. And so I think that's incredibly important. Number two is, as cliche as it may sound, shoot for the stars. I remember when I was applying for my Fulbright, I was very hesitant in many ways, but Paul is somebody who really motivated me and reminded me of the importance of trying these opportunities. And even if you don't get it, it's still a really great experience. I think as girls, sometimes maybe looking at in terms of gender, when we see, maybe it's different for a guy, but I think for women, when they see, oh, it's 5 years of experience, I have like 4.5 years, we don't apply. So I think it's very important to ask, if there's exceptions, if there's a possibility to go around that, if there could be considered another type of experience. So in that sense, I think asking is good. The other one, number three, is make a vision board. I think remembering every day what you want to accomplish, and having it in your room, or having it in your notebook, or having it in a sticky note where, where do you want to live? How do you want to live? What do you want to be doing? What do you want to be enjoying? And just remembering that will be really important. The other one is, help people out. I think when you go and exchange cards, especially in Japan, you're always exchanging these cards. And after you exchange your business card, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a network of like 15 incredible people. You really don't. You have 15 business cards. So when you go and you actually reach out and see how you can help and connect with that person, and it could be a reciprocal relationship, that's when you actually have a network. And I think we shouldn't confuse the amount of business cards we have with our actual network, because sometimes it's not the same. The best thing is with transfer students, there's a big gap, right? There's people who are much older, there's people who are much younger, and I think that's important to remember, because if you're at the younger side before 30 years old, there's so many scholarships, so many funding opportunities that want you before you become 30, and knowing those deadlines, because they're often like opportunities for now are for the year 2025 right now, and they're opening now. So it's not like I'm going to apply for this year. A lot of really nice ones are for a year or 2 years down the road. So knowing how old you'll be in 2 years, and making sure that you're going to be applying to that regardless, is extremely important. And if you're on the other side beyond 30 years old, there's also really, really great opportunities that only want people who are above 40 or above 35 or above 50. Like the Rotary Peace Fellowship, they actually want people who are around their 40s. That's kind of their age range. So and they're actually much nicer in terms of much more funding. So making sure that you know those deadlines, and that you're going to be applying, and that you're going to be constantly reminded that they exist, and whatever your chances are, you're going to get them. It's really important. So that's why the timeline is important. So know what you're going to be doing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, even though it won't come, maybe it will come. But know that you have those things, and kind of following up with them. I'll stop speaking there, but I think those are kind of the things that in my mind I really wanted to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like for me, I've always considered myself very goal-oriented, and having goals and a timeline, such as like what Elizabeth has illustrated, is really, really important, because you always want to keep the end in mind. And obviously to do that, in planning graduate school, your undergraduate studies, majors, scholarship opportunities, internships, things you can get involved in. Having a plan B is also helpful as well. And then seeking that support that a lot of us have been able to do, not being afraid to ask questions, to reach out to individuals for any help. That doesn't show any sign of weakness, but on the contrary, like for those folks who want to really empower themselves and being their own advocates, I think what's important is being able to be consistent, persistent, right? My favorite movie has been The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. So I've always sort of relied on that movie just to kind of learn about how perseverance is such a powerful thing that really empowers you to be able to do so much more. And I know that sometimes circumstances may be different, but I've always been with the mindset of like persisting and ensuring that you have what you need in order to become successful. And I think Paul has been such a great mentor for many of us, and not only in him, but also like different resources, different opportunities we've been able to get. Success is possible. And I know it's different for many of us, as the word itself is very subjective, but I feel like we've all been able to gain a broader sense of what success means by empowering ourselves and then reaching out to those individuals that have helped us get to bigger steps.
Thank you so much, all of you, for all those really great responses throughout this workshop and panel. So I think now is really a chance for people in the audience to ask questions. This is a great group of people. We have panelists in 3 separate time zones, which is kind of wild. So this is your opportunity to ask questions. So you can put it in the chat or unmute yourself. This is a really great opportunity to hear directly from people who transferred a few years ago and have grad degrees or in their career. So what questions do you all have? Don't be shy.
I don't think I have any questions because there's just so much covered. It seems like there was so much from every different direction, so many different perspectives and experiences. I just wanted to say thank you all, obviously, for your time. It kind of gives just that much more motivation to, one day at a time, one, foot in front of the other to keep it going. Because sometimes it can seem a long ways away. It can still seem like to get where you all are, it's like, I still have to go through this and I still have to finish this and I still have to kind of make those steps, and it can seem a long ways away for me personally, especially comparing to others as a non-traditional student, transfer student. It can feel like, don't compare yourself to other people. Don't, look at just one person as the example, kind of take it like this, seeing every piece that y'all have gone through, and the advice that you're giving is priceless. So thank you so much for your time. I think that's the main thing I want to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I agree. And so we have some questions in the chat, so I'll read the first one. It says, for those who have done research or internships, did you feel like you were not qualified? How did you decide to go for it? Sometimes I wonder if I'm skilled enough. First of all, you're skilled enough before we get to the panel, for sure.
Yeah, I think it was Reina or someone else mentioned that. I mean, again, I don't mean this to be like brash, but a lot of people feel really confident in their ability to apply for all these things, and they get away with it. And like, I've worked with like some really incompetent people, and I've interned with really incompetent people, and I'm just always genuinely in shock. I'm like, okay, here I am overthinking applying to these things, and then I get there and I'm like, okay, like, no. It's not fair that like a lot of like transfer students and like minorities feel like there's so many barriers to applying to things, and then you get to this position, you realize how unqualified other people are, and then you're just like, this is just prime example of like meritocracy and like a lot of optimism within like privileged communities. And like, absolutely, I mean, like, shoot for the stars, honestly, as was mentioned, when you're applying for these internships. Like, if you feel like your skills are reach. Like, if you feel like your skills might not be able to do that, it's just a matter of like, I really do believe that you have to just reach and like take that first step and get over imposter syndrome in the process of it. And like, it's hard, but it is like a necessary first step, because I don't mean to bash a lot of my former colleagues and coworkers, but trust me, folks get into really prestigious internships and roles and don't really have a lot of the skill set necessary to be in those roles. So shoot for the stars.
And I would add that maybe it's a skill, it's about phrasing it. Instead of saying like, I worked 5 times a day and I did this, like, you can add a bit of like, what else did that encompass? And how can you phrase it in a way that does align with those skills as close as you can? And so I think it's a big game in terms of wording. How do you word things? And then how do those reflect the skills? But if you genuinely don't have the skills and you really don't think that you do, then what are you doing to get them, right? If it's in the research field, are you going to the Europe office in the University of Utah and maybe trying a fellowship? Are you assisting a professor in that process? So making sure those skills, if you don't have them, that you get them. And also, I think there's many ways to legitimize your skills, and you can do that through internships and projects. But another thing, like something that the University of Utah does, which is amazing, is the Europe program, which is, it gives you a year or half a year to assist a professor in research. And then they have the Europe Awards, which is these research awards that they assign every school and faculty. So have, like, the School of Dentistry gets an award, the School of Social Work gets an award, and with this research award, you don't only get money, but you basically can can say like I am an expert in research to some extent, right? So finding those little ways that you can show your skills and showcase them or develop them is incredibly important. But I think wording is incredibly, that's the most important part. If you can word it, then whatever skill you have, you'll develop it.
Thank you. So we have another question in the chat, and it says, a lot of scholarships I see are not for art students, and I see that are for all degrees that are not need-based, and a lot of external scholarship sites kind of seem like shoveling through junk mail. How do I find scholarships that aren't need-based more easily? And I also think, like, how do you find relevant scholarships is part of the question.
Oh, like for my experiences, like when I do like looking for scholarships, usually I just have my kind of like brainstorming like board, like what do I have to offer, and then I start like writing start writing words like random words like from leadership to like business, like if you have in that major, or like if you're speaking another language, and then after that you go into like a search engine or something, and then start looking putting all of those, and then start like research all the scholarship that actually you meet the criteria. And then sometimes like if you say like for example, like they don't have a lot of scholarship for art or something, but there's like a different wording in those type of scholarship that they say it's not for art, but there's like something different that might be fit into your field of study. And then sometimes it's okay to reach out to that sponsorship, and then you can just ask them like, hey, I'm an art major, like, but you looking for like this type of degree, like can I apply for this scholarship, or this is like particular for art student. And then it's okay to just like reach out to those community donors. And then sometimes I know that in the past when I'm working with some scholarship sponsor, they told me that some students no one applied for that scholarship. Student like with different major apply, and then they got that scholarship because no one applied because they don't have they don't have like candidate for that scholarship.
And I guess just to add, I think it's good to go to the field. Maybe you go to events which are in your field, meet the person, look at their LinkedIn, look at their CV, look at what scholarships they got, ask them if they'd be willing to make a connection, or somebody in their circle, ask away. And I think Germany and Turkey are big on art scholarships. The Fulbright in Germany has like a whole section on it, and Turkey, the one it will end in 3 days from now, which is not just Turkey, it's countries like in countries around Turkey that you can get fully funded. And I think it'll end in 4 days. But yeah, if you know what kind of countries promote that the most, look at their government web pages, and look at their and look at external scholarships that permit U.S. nationals to go abroad as well. I think those are the best chances. But I think the good place to start is seeing who got them, who's in your circle, and kind of who do you want to mirror in that sense.
I think this is great advice. And just to echo, I would say, looking in your field, I agree with Elizabeth, looking at other people who've gotten things that you're looking for is a great way to kind of see how they've done it. And then again, too, I would go back to Sambad's point that like you could be in art, but you can be a leader in art. So there's lots of like leaderships, or I know a lot of scholarships are also community service. And so, how to use art and community service. There's ways that you can make your experience fit what they're looking for. So I would say don't be discouraged. I'm happy to talk to anyone after this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would like, and just echoing what Elizabeth mentioned earlier, part of her advice is to invest in your time into looking for those scholarships. Elizabeth said it beautifully with like, look at it as like if it was a job, right? So it's like investing your time into looking for those scholarships that are out there. Part of like, when I was looking for scholarships, I reached out to the program that I was in, the social work program, but I also went outside of the program and went to the union. And one of the scholarships that I got was it's just like a long name, the Student Affairs, Diversity, Council, and Union Student Leadership Scholarship. It was like this whole thing. So I was able to apply to that, and then I got that one, and then also applied to the Chicano Scholarship. So there's scholarships out there that don't particularly have to be pertaining to your major, but like that you could actually qualify for. And then I don't know, Paul, if this is still current, but Academic Works. that's the website that I was using a lot, and I would spend a lot of my time also looking and searching through to see if I qualify for those.
Thank you. Any last questions before we end this? And thank you all for your taking time out to be part of this. And this is my daughter. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Thank you all so much for attending. I am going to record this and we'll have it up on our website if you want to come back and look at it. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. These are great presenters, such great students. I'm so lucky to have worked with them. I'm the lucky one to have worked with such great students. So it's all kind of based on your own skill. So thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one. So thank you.